Chapter 833, Sun Wanqi's Confession, Add 2. At breakfast the next day, Sun Wanqi tries to keep a low profile, but the crew teases her about crying during Yamada's execution. Embarrassed, she mumbles excuses. Shortly after, Sun Wanqi discovers her meal is spoiled. She takes a bite and immediately tastes rancid food, moldy vegetables and foul chicken. Retching, she confronts Xie Changming. He calmly reminds her, "You said yesterday that this food wouldn't kill anyone and that per Zhang Yi's orders she will eat this spoiled rations for a week." The crew laughs. Sun Wanqi realizes they are punishing her literally with the food she volunteered for the stowaways. Distraught, she tears up and runs to Zhu Yonk to complain. Zhu Yonk, already harried by a sick child, snaps that Sun Wanqi had assured everyone the food was safe. Sun Wanqi is left in near collapse at having poisoned herself by her own naivety. Chapter 834, Turmoil in the Lower Cabin. That night Sun Wanqi endures severe stomach pains from the tainted meal. Captain Zhang Yi orders Zhou Kor to treat her leniently. Zhou Kor ominously notes a doctor can make a patient suffer in 100 ways. She extracts painful pig syringe injections, ensuring Sun Wanqi's misery but survival. Meanwhile, far below, discontent sows unrest. A few nights later, Zhang Yi hears a raucous clamor from the lower decks. Immigrants and island survivors have broken down barriers and are banging pots, shouting, "We don't have enough to eat." These are the lowest class passengers, who receive minimal rations. They accuse the passengers above of excess. "Why do you eat meat and fish while we starve for porridge?" Armed crew rush down. Zhang Yi coldly orders them to shoot at any rioters. He stands by with guns leveled, turning the standoff into a grim warning. Food shortages are intolerable, but any rebellion will be met with lethal force. Chapter 835, Stowaways on the Ship. Captain Zhang Yi investigates the ration issue. In a tense meeting in the lower cabin, Lu Dehai, a fisherman, explains their predicament. Adults barely fill half full, children 70% full. They had waited patiently until now, but hunger drove them to protest. Zhang Yi and Xie Changming react harshly to any hint that the crew withheld food. Lu Dehai claims they were starving. Zhang Yi asks ominously if someone actually died. Sensing an undercurrent, Zhang Yi asks old Tian to explain. Lao Tian admits that although Zhang Yi supplied all provisions fairly, some crew had begun frequenting the lower decks, trading favors for sex with the women there. The lower cabin people, after long deprivation, saw the sailors' lavish meats and realized their own deprivation. Resentment built until last night's riot. Lu Dehai protests, "We are compatriots, why do foreigners get so much while we starve?" The Yenlu refugees defend the expatriates, but Zhang Yi notes the problem's root is lack of food. He listens quietly as Lu Dehai angrily suggests working for food. The conflict is clear. Jealousy and inequality, exacerbated by extra mouths aboard, ignited the rebellion. Chapter 836, Accomplishment. The aftermath turns to strategy. Zhang Yi quickly deduces who enabled the stowaways. Only Zhu Yonk had motive and opportunity. Indeed, she had secretly sheltered about 20 illegal immigrants, mostly diverse Asians, who had clung to the Jinfeng's hull. Zhu Yonk feared they'd be thrown overboard, so she hid them in the lower cabin. Caught by Zhang Yi's piercing gaze, she admits it silently. Zhang Yi surprises her by not punishing her for the breach. Instead, he turns the situation to his advantage. He solicits Zhu Yonk and Sun Wanqi's opinions on what to do with the stowaways. When both women say the migrants should be forgiven, Zhang Yi publicly forgives them on the spot. This shocks everyone. Even the crew expected him to expel or kill the stowaways. Zhang Yi then delivers a rousing speech. "In these end times life is cheaper than grass, and all have done desperate things to survive." He emphasizes unity, stick together like a family, under his protection. The lower cabin erupts in approval. The crisis is temporarily averted through Zhang Yi's show of merciful leadership. Zhu Yonk and Sun Wanqi are praised as reasonable. Zhu even admits she likes him a little now. Zhang Yi indicates no one will be punished for the uproar. He orders everyone to rest. However, Lu Dehai remains uneasy. As the crowd disperses, he realizes the core problem, insufficient food, hasn't been resolved at all. He tries to speak with Zhang Yi, but Che Haicheng, now Zhang's enforcer, blocks him, stating Zhang Yi is engaged with Zhu Yonk. Left outside, Lu Dehai stews over the injustice. The stowaways remain, but rations are unchanged. The chapter closes on the icy night. conflict is postponed but unresolved. Chapter 837, Me? Late at night, Zhang Yi privately reassures Zhu Yonk. He does not blame her for hiding the stowaways. Calmly he affirms she was acting out of compassion. Xu beams and Sun Wanqi thanks him for doing a good job with the refugees. Zhang Yi dismisses them to rest. Outside, Lu Dahai and his brothers confront Zhang Yi. They demand increased food now that extra mouths are aboard. Zhang Yi sternly counters, "How much food do you think is left on this ship?" He reminds them the voyage was long with no resupply, as a fisherman Lu Dahai should know. Dahai's face falls as he grasps the precarious supplies. Zhang Yi admits he barely scraped by and never intended to bring these people at all, he just had the will but not the strength. More bluntly, he insists that rations must be strictly controlled or all will starve. He emphasizes that existing meals were already carefully apportioned. Now, with 22 illegal stowaways aboard, everyone must share the same meager rations. It's better for everyone to starve together than for them to die. Lu Dahai finally excuses, promising to endure. Zhang Yi compliments him on understanding. He cryptically sighs that had he known, he would have prevented them from boarding. He leaves the fisherman to ponder, disappearing into the night. Dahai realizes Zhang Yi's solution, presumably some terrible sacrifice, and a sinister thought crosses his mind as the cold darkness envelopes the ship. Chapter 838, This matter has nothing to do with me. Zhu Yonk tries to negotiate a fix. Over breakfast she gently raises the issue with Zhang Yi. Surely he can access extra food in his space, a hidden supply dimension, to feed the 20 stowaways. Zhang Yi feigns helplessness, complaining his space is filled with essentials, fuel, ammo, and that every possible ration was already calculated for this voyage. He pretends unable to spare any more supplies. When Xu Yonk, desperate, asks what she should do, Zhang Yi dismissively says it is her problem. You brought them here, so solve it yourself. I won't get involved. Secretly, Zhang Yi smirks after leaving. He actually has vast reserves but chooses not to help the silly Zhu Yonk. He figures by not intervening, Zhu Yonk will be forced to manage the crisis, potentially failing. He hums a song about light and darkness, implying he relishes letting events unfold. Back in her cabin, Zhu Yonk complains to Sun Wanqi about Zhang Yi's coldness. Sun Wanqi scolds her, "Isn't she too kind?" Zhu Yonk reluctantly admits Zhang Yi is in charge and she can't control him. She resolves to find a solution herself. Chapter 839, A Great Plan. The next morning Zhu Yonk enlists old Tian's help. She flatters and cajoles Lao Tian, proposing that crew members simply save their plate scraps for the lower cabin. You throw away leftovers anyway, she pleads, suggesting it as charity. Lao Tian, amused and cautious, asks if Zhang Yi has approved this plan. Xu Yonk blurts that there's no need to bother the captain with this trivial matter. Reading her anxiety, Lao Tian frowns. This could be awkward. He explains that crew rations were set exactly by Zhang Yi to maximize their strength. Unpredictable appetites mean leftover food is unreliable. Instead, he counters, they can collect all truly leftover food after every meal, literally crumbs and scraps, and send that down. This way the stowaways get something without changing any official ration. Zhu Yonk gratefully accepts this compromise, not realizing Zhang Yi's likely disapproval. Chapter 840, Hitting a Snag, Add 1. Zhu Yonk's hope is crushed as Lao Tian mockingly explains why fishing or other tricks can't create more food. On deck he demonstrates that at the Jinfeng speed no one can stably fish, and feeding the crewbait is impossible. Angered, Zhu Yonk insists on a solution. Lao Tian bluntly tells her, this mess is her own doing. If she thinks food falls from the sky, he tells her to stop acting unreasonable. He refuses to interfere further without Zhang Yi's order. The crew at the mess tables overhear Zhu Yonk's plight. They mock her position, poor girl, giving away your special meals. Come eat with us for free. It's made clear that Zhang Yi and his men have no sympathy. Zhu Yonk's cultivated Western manners mean nothing in this brutal situation. Desperate, Zhu Yonk recruits Sun Wanqi and Zhou Kor to personally distribute their own food to the poor. They gather simple meals in metal basins. Xu Yonk and Sun Wanqi head to Zhang Yi's cabin to fetch Zhou Kor, banging on the door. Zhou Kor, clad in a nightgown, emerges groggily. When told the plan, she laughs at their naivete but agrees to join. Zhu Yonk reasons that any food Zhou Core gives away is actually from Zhang Yi's personal supply. Together the three set out to deliver provisions themselves, unaware of how the hungry mob will greet them. Chapter 841, Fight. Zhu Yonk and Sun Wanqi lead the crewmen down into the lower cabin with their food basins. At their sweet words, anyone who hasn't eaten, come here for food, a desperate horde swarms them. In an instant the crowd tramples both women, snatching the scant rice from their arms. The chaos is violent, refugees fight for the scraps, knocking Zhu Yonk and Sun Wanqi to the floor, trampling them. A gunshot warning, stop or I'll beat you to death, momentarily halts the mayhem. The hatch is locked. Zhu Yonk and Sun Wanqi flee upstairs, bloodied and humiliated. In front of the door, a crewman scolds the survivors, "You bastards, you want to rebel. You don't even know how to thank someone who gives you food. You deserve to starve." The lower cabin passengers shrink under his glare, their desperation unmistakable. Back in Zhu Yonk's room, both victims sob. Sun Wanqi, bruised and tearful, remarks that the refugees were good people on the island but became wild beasts over hunger. Zhu Yonk, nursing bleeding wounds, rages in pain and fury. They realize, all this was born of one cause, starvation. Sun Wanqi confides that on the island, the men went fishing and the women stayed behind hungry. Zhu Yonk, torn by guilt and anger, realizes Yamada Masana's food crimes likely contributed. They stop short, considering what to do next. The food crisis is now fully out of hand. Chapter 842, Group. Discontent in the lower cabin reaches a boiling point. The refugees blame Zhu Yonk's actions for bringing parasites, stowaways, on board. "It's all because of those damn stowaways," they hiss. They curse the missing Zhu Yonk, calling her a bitch for their suffering. But they dare not rebel openly, fear of Zhang Yi's guns looms. The fisherman brothers, Lu Dahai, Ron Lei, Yu Gang, quietly plot, "We have to get rid of these bastards, or we'll never get the food we deserve." They recognize subtle collective strength among the stowaways. Inside the locked stowaway cabin, the group huddles under siege. Their leaders, Zaku, a gray-haired gangster-turned-tycoon, and martial artists Elrod and Yamet, convene. They anticipated this moment. From the start they planned to band together if discovered. Zaku calmly smokes a grass stem. Elrod warns that now the cabin's secrets are out, hostile rumors and possibly violence will erupt outside. They'll be heavily outnumbered. The others exchange worried looks. Zaku only laughs softly. "Why, are you scared?" The stance is defiant. The chapter closes on this tense impasse. Two groups divided by hunger, each led by fierce men, balance on the brink of all-out conflict in the frozen wastes. Chapters 843 to 851. Chapter 843, Trapped Beast Fight. A major skirmish erupts at sea. Earlier, a large fin dragon, huge ocean predator, had ambushed the ship, and in repelling it the crew captured notorious criminals, the Zhang and Holy Nine, on board. During the aftermath, Lu Dahai finds himself facing a group of Zaga's lieutenants on deck. A desperate fight ensues. Lu Dahai is knocked down and nearly overwhelmed by the smugglers' assault. Seeing her brother in danger, Ron Lei, Lu Dahai's sister, charges into the fray. In fierce combat, Lu Dahai and Ron Lei manage to slay several of the smugglers, turning the tide. Their victory is temporary relief. Two stowaway leaders are killed, Ron Lei, and one captured, Yamada Masana. This clash deepens the animosity. Lu Dahai has tasted blood and Zaga now harbors vengeance. Power dynamics shift as both sides realize their strength and losses. Chapter 844, A New Way of Living. Back in the lower hold, the aftermath of the skirmish creates tension. At the next meal distribution, Zaga's gang conspicuously leaves their usual portions behind and only takes minimal share. Zaga declares he wants to negotiate rather than fight again. Lu Dahai steps up as Lu's spokesperson. He proposes an alliance. He suggests that if fishermen and smugglers jointly manage food distribution, alternating who collects first, no further conflict is needed and all will be fed. Zaga coldly considers and, after a tense pause, agrees to meet Lu Dahai's terms. This shockingly peaceful turn of events is met with disbelief by other passengers, who had hoped for a deadly showdown to eliminate Zaga's gang once and for all. In private, Ron Lei, Yu Gang, and Lu Dahai are uneasy. They remember how Zagu brutalized them. But outwardly they play along, gaining 2 peaceful days where stowaways eat first and fishermen take leftovers. Nonetheless, resentment grows. Starving refugees see the stowaway fisherman truce as betrayal and begin to grovel to Lu Dahai for scraps. Lu Dahai coldly rebukes them for cowardice, calling them a bunch of cowards bullying their own kind. Peace reigns, but silently within the lower hold a powder keg of hunger simmers. Chapter 845. Fighting with Courage. Lu Dahai publicly appeals to the starving crowd. He denounces Zagu and Zagu's gang as the true cause of their starvation and urges revenge. The captives initially tremble at the thought, fearing Zhang Yi's wrath. Many argue they cannot risk open mutiny. Lu Dahai listens as survivors bicker about passive endurance versus action. When the crowd again demands guidance, he finally says bluntly, "If the stowaways are not forcibly stopped, we will starve to death." He posits that if the smugglers have food, the starving Huashu will have none. To save themselves, they must make it impossible for them to live. Lu Dahai paints himself as their leader in this desperate crusade. A few brave men respond. One shouts, "Fuck him. We won't live in fear anymore." And others join in. Discussion of lethal retribution on Zagu is now openly entertained. This chapter ends with a resolve forming among the starving, to rise up and fight, as waiting any longer guarantees death. Chapter 846, Recruiting Soldiers. It's morning and Zhang Yi strolls the deck, feeling uneasy that something big is imminent. He bets with Zhou Koron when Zhu Yong's pampered daughters, trapped on deck with a baby, will collapse, displaying his confidence in their demise. Meanwhile below decks, Lu Dahai officially calls for volunteers to avenge their suffering. He frames the fight as inevitable given Zhang Yi's limited supplies on board, and argues it's better for all to die together than to let the smugglers have all the food. The captains of each faction summon representatives. Tension crackles as hundreds gather in the hold. The poor and starving unanimously agree to attack Zagu at first chance. Lu Dahai and his fisherman gang lead by example. In summary, Lu Dahai has effectively recruited all who can fight into a lethal alliance against the smuggler gang, finalizing plans for confrontation. This chapter is mostly set up, but culminates in a consensus. They will launch a midnight ambush. Zhang Yi remains oblivious upstairs, calm in contrast.